Well, hello there again, friends. Today is 10/18/2022, and today is the Odin Project vlog day 156. And I have arrived at handle inputs and render list. I'm 74% complete with the JavaScript section of the course, and just getting started in the meat and potatoes here. Continuing on with React, as it's been a hot minute since I put up a video. Work's been crazy, and then been getting completely stuck on on this module. As you guys have learned, if you're following along with me and you've already done the exercise, we're putting code to the page today. And oh my, was this a savage of a process? At least for me, man, I got tore up. Um, I I just want to say that React is a lot harder than I gave it credit to. I guess I'm not sure in my mind, just speaking out loud here with you guys. I'm not sure what I thought I was getting into. I thought it was, I guess I had the understanding, obviously wrong, that it was going to be easy breeze since we took the time to learn JavaScript bones and the vanilla JS bones first. Um, and then that React would be kind of a smooth sail, but it is not. It definitely helps to have that JavaScript background for sure, so you know what stuff's doing. But it feels a lot like its own language. There's a new flow, a new way to you're still using methods and functions and stuff like that, but there's new ways that as you guys have found out, if you've already done this yet or you're working through this exercise. There's a lot of rules and object flow that you have to understand, and props and state, and we went over some of that already, but it really sets it in here. So the point of today is to just kind of showcase to you. I'm not going to go through the detailed guide because that was really done really well here, and it's just more of kind of an overview video and to tell you guys what I did. So I tried starting off to get started here. I did try to start off using the do-it-yourself guide, but I quickly got overwhelmed, and so I ended up doing the detailed guide because I figured, why be hard on myself? I did give the first guide a try. I wasn't getting it, and so it was very first React project, very first React anything, trying to do it on my own. So I figured, why not try the detailed guide? So I went through the detailed guide. It made sense. I put the code on paper. I didn't copy anything. I typed everything in manually, so it would help further cement in the concepts and try to get an idea of what's going on. And there's a lot to it. It's definitely going to be a work in progress for sure. And I won't go over all this except the knowledge check, and I'll share with you the optionals. So I tried, doing the easies, both the easy ones. It says these are optional tasks, ideas to play around, and it basically says, come back to these if you want to give them another try when you're more advanced and see how you do. And then it's kind of like supposed to be a pat on the back type situation where you can see how far you've come along in your understanding of React. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll go ahead and give these a stab. I spent forever, even longer on number 2, but number 1 I spent quite a bit of time trying to figure out. So basically, we're wanting to display a count, basically, and implement a incrementing count in our task array. So I ended up going to Discord and getting in the chat there and asking for help, and I got some really cool pointers. I was on the right track, and so spoiler alert, I'm going to show you when I implemented it. It works fabulous. If you're not to this part or you don't want to see it, maybe pause the video right here and come back after you've done it. So I'm going to give you a countdown, and then we're going to do it. 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and show you that now, and let me blow this up a bit. Okay, So essentially, I won't go through all this code because the whole assignment is going over this and typing it out and understanding what's going on. They do a really good job, so there's no point in me recreating that wheel. So anyway, to initialize the state, I gave it a attribute, a property of number property, and give it a value of 1 for the key value pair there to start the state off. And then in the handle change, so this is whenever something is typed in the field of the text box, we're going to have the value be take on this.state.task.number, and that will be whatever is currently in the state, and we're in the confines of the set state, so we're not having any issues with trying to alter state in incorrectly, because you remember you got to use yours from last video I did. You got to do use set state in order to set that mutable. Your state is a mutable item, but you've got to do it within the confines of set state. At least so far for what you learned. So that's that. And the reason why it's capturing this the current the current state is because handle change also is called down here in unique ID. So on submit tasks, this is when they hit the submit button. If you haven't worked through this yet, this probably isn't making any sense to you at all, really, if you haven't done any of this yet. So just bear with me. I'll show you the screen here in a moment, and we'll go through as we normally do, and I'll show you the browser, and we'll go through what's on the screen. But on submit task anyway, so it's going to submit E, which is a parameter just for event. So basically, we're going to, on the click, when we click submit for the task, we're going to do E.prevent default, which that, as a reminder, that after reading and learning a little bit more, that prevents the browser from refreshing the page, because the default procedure on an event for a click is, if you have a type submit button, is to submit the page, and so it'll refresh. So that's going to prevent that. And then we're going to set state, and we're going to do tasks. This.state.task concat. So we're going to combine the current state of the tasks array with the current state of the task that's being typed in. So this won't make sense, like I said, unless you've already done it, but I won't really explain that, just telling you that's why it's there. That's just combining two arrays together into one. That's basically combining this task into the tasks array. The one I want to point to here and focus on right here is in the task without the S, the task individual task on submit. So we're going to have text equals blank, so it's going to reset the text key value pair to nothing, so that when the submit happens, the text box goes to blank, empty field. And then we're going to, for ID, we're going to call unique ID. And this is an internal method that they have you install from the exercise, from the material, and then you import it here from unique ID after you install it with npx. And then sorry, earlier I said I wanted to queue in on, this is what I want to queue in on, not unique ID. I just got so much flowing through my head right now, but this is what I want to focus on. So number here, it call the key value pair here. This calls this.state.task.number plus 1. So we're incrementing, when we're submitting, we're incrementing the current state by 1, and this is valid because we are inside the set state. All this is valid. If you try to do any of this actually outside of the set state, I don't think you'll get an error message, but you won't have the results you want, because if you remember from our last video, when you call set state, React back engine knows to run the render after that, so which runs all this down here. So if you didn't use set state, it would update the current state of that number, but it's not actually registering it and holding it inside of the state. So when you call state again later, you won't have that incremented plus 1. You would just have whatever your current state was. It would never actually update. Plus after that plus 1. So I hope that makes sense. Again, this won't make sense if you haven't done the exercise, but that's the how I did. There's other ways to do it. Again, like I've said before, my way ain't the best way. It's not the only way. It's just the way I did it. So that increments that by 1. and then uh, down here we have our return, and I think that's it for incrementing the number. So when it prints off, it'll come over here, because down here in the return statement we're calling the overview and sending it in the tasks array. So we come over here to overview over here, and how it'll print off is it'll print off right here in the list item on the return statement. We're mapping through each task in the tasks array and doing a few things. One of the things we're doing is creating a key equal to the task.id. So that's coming through from props. So we're destructuring props right here with the task, and then we're doing task.id here. And so that populates that. And just being transparent with you guys, I couldn't figure out how to get task.number and task.text. I'm sorry, I keep going back to task.id. I meant task.number is populated here, and that comes from the destructuring of props, which then is this this increment number. Sorry, I keep confusing ID with number. Anyway, that's how that populates there in the curly brackets in the JSX. And then I learned that if you put spaces in between, I don't think this is right. This is just a hack job on JB's part. But if you put spaces in between, actually we'll put spaces on the screen. I'm sure that's not right to do, but that's the way I got it to work. And so that's why you see spaces here. There's spaces here too between the button. Yeah, so that's how that works. So if you see this in the browser, just put a bunch of junk in here. See, it adds the tasks 1, 2, and there's your space, and there's a space 2 between that and the delete. Adds a task, adds a task, adds task. So if I hit delete, this is what doesn't work. So the number counting does work. As you can see, 1, 2, 3. I can keep adding more and more and more, and it's just going to keep adding up because it's doing that incremental count and it's rendering that to the screen. So that is doing that. Wow, long-winded way of getting there. The second one, this is what just totally wrecked me. Just totally wrecked me. Is the implementing a delete button. As you can see, I got the delete button to work, and the long and short of that is I got it to work by just simply because I knew I need to be an overview because that's what's rendering the LIs. So if I just put a button element in here with the type called button, it works great, and call it delete, and that will render inside of the when we're mapping inside the UL under a list, it'll map that inside of each LI, and so that's what you're seeing here. So the problem is when on click, which I worked on and worked on. Again, I went to Discord on this one and got some really helpful advice, but I went there twice and I didn't want to go there a third time, so I just gave up. So basically, I didn't get this to work. So if you guys know how to get this to work without severely manipulating the current structure of things, please let me know in the comments because I would love to know. Otherwise, I'll come back later if I remember and fix it when I learn more. But I have an on click here, and this invokes the handle remove, which is currently not working. As you can see, there's red squiggly underneath it, but it's supposed to call a variable, or not variable, a function, and pass in the task.id, because I was going to target that task.id from unique ID over here to delete that particular LI. And that part was working. I got it to work a little bit, so I had some success doing it over here, and that's why you see it commented out, just so I can come back to it in the future. But it was giving me other problems. If you do it over here, you have to set which we haven't even learned about, but I learned just by poking around on the internet. You have to use a hook. You have to set up a React hook and use I think it's called use hook, I think. Anyway, you use a set list to do that. So that kind of worked, but kind of didn't. So then I tried going over here, and you can see all my commented code here. I tried multiple different ways of adding in different functions to do that task of removing it. Some worked, some didn't, but in the end, long story short, none of them worked correctly. I got some of the ideas. I got all the way to where it was deleting it from the array, but it wasn't displaying it. And then I would get stuck on how to get display, and then that would mess with things. I would get weird React errors and all this stuff. And I think a lot of it comes from the simple fact that I don't know what I'm doing yet. And it's frustrating because, and it's savagely frustrating because when you've been doing, I can do this all day long with my eyes closed in vanilla JavaScript, but now that we're working inside the confines of React, there's rules that you have to follow, and you can't violate them, and I can't figure it out yet. So I will. I'll get there. I'm sure of it. But that came, as you can see, I did a lot of work, a lot of different attempts to try to get that to work. So that's that. I talked longer than I wanted to. So at 16 minutes. I don't know if I'm gonna go over the knowledge check or not. So basically, how do you handle input form, input fields? That's just basically going back to the code. So how you handle it is by basically creating this on submit task. This method here handles the we already went over that, but that handles the submission, and then handling a change is this right here, and we've kind of skipped over this, but same type of concept. So this handles a change on when the user types in something or deletes something, a letter or a character inside of the form. This automatically sets the state in real time. So you have the task that sets the individual task with a text ID and number. So e.target.value is just automatically updating, and that e.target.value is whatever they're currently typing in the field. And then we're updating the ID with this state.task.id from the unique ID method that we installed and imported from external. And then number is what I already went through, is pulling that from the current state. So that's basically answers both of those questions. And how do you render lists? So you render your list. This is the rendering, basically. When you map over it and then you return it, you can either do that inside of a render, or in this example, we're not using a class. So when you're not using a class and you're just using a functional component like we learned in the last video, you don't need to have a render. So we just have a mapping. We're doing a map of tasks of task and returning LIs inside of UL. Or conversely over here, to answer the question, this would be your render. So you destructure the state right here. You don't have to do that, but that just makes it easier, cleaner code, because you can manipulate and use the variables of the individual keys inside of the state without having to do state dot whatever, this dot state dot props dot whatever dot task dot id, that sort of thing. And then you return out the div and the form and the button. And again, I don't want to go over all that because that's all in the lesson. So, but that's the quick and dirty on how to answer that, render the list. So yeah, so that renders so this basically renders the form and gets the input set up and going, and then the change updates it here. On submit task is on the form for the button when you click submit, and then here's how you would render the list items outside of the class in a non-class functional component. So yeah, so with all that said, please like, share, and subscribe for more content, and let me know in the comment section if you guys got the delete button to not only populate like I have, but actually get it to work, and where it deletes the state of the item you want to delete, and it updates the state and renders the state successfully. Other than that, with all that said, until next time, see ya.